Hey, my name's Ash. I'm from the Bauer Reuse and Repair Centre. I'm one of the 3 facilitators of this year's tiny house course. So like everything at the Bauer, this year's tiny house was built from all second-hand materials. So this included the timber framing, the doors and the windows, which we sort of tidied up a little bit, and the cladding, which was a mix of sort of weatherboards and corrugated sheeting. And so the Bauer sources all this from donations from people all over Sydney. However, we did buy a few new things for the tiny house. We bought some new brace ply to ensure that the tiny house was firm, particularly that it's going to be driving around on the trailer. We bought new sarking, which is the sort of permeable membrane which goes around to ensure that it's going to be waterproof. And we also purchased new fixings, so screws and bolts and nails and the like. The course was attended by 15 students with a limited amount of building experience, but everyone was interested in the idea of sort of reducing what they have, living small, and gaining some more experience of working with their hands. So the students learned to do a range of things on the course. They learned to measure up, which is the first thing you're going to do in any sort of making or building project. They learned to sort of use a wide array of tools. They learned to cut all the hardwood frames. Sorry, not hardwood frames, the Oregon framing. They learned to nail the frames together, to get to cut the openings in the frames based off the windows that we'd sourced. They got to stand all the frames up together as a group. They had to set everything square, put on the brace ply, put on the sarking. They had to prep all the cladding, which was weatherboards, and the corrugated sheeting, which they had to sort of cut in different ways to fit around like the wheel arches and the windows. They had to put the roof framing on. They also had to put the insulation on, the roof sheeting, and nailing and bolting and screwing everything sort of constantly. And so this was over a 6-day period. So it was a lot of fun. And so the house is finished to lock-up stage. So this means that all the exterior is done. It's all waterproofed and finished off, but the inside is left for whoever's going to purchase this to finish it off. Legally, you're required to have the plumbing and the electrical done by a professional, but being that it's quite a small house, this shouldn't be too expensive of an undertaking. And then outside of that, yes, you have to fit out the inside. And so when we designed this thing, we had a bit of an idea. We did some sketches just to get a bit of an indication of how someone might hypothetically fit this out in the future. And this mainly dictated the location of the windows. One main part of this is underneath the loft. We've got 2 windows at the end, with the idea that this might get broken up into a kitchen on one side and a bathroom on the other side. So the area that you walk in where the front door is a big sort of open space. Not too big, but there's a lot of head height, so it's about 3.5 meters tall in there. There's probably some room for additional higher storage you might be able to access with the ladder. But we also have some big windows which open out to the front. The front door can be opened. There's also a little window next to the front door, and then a taller window which sits next to a ladder that we also built through the course, which leads up to the loft. And then the tiny house, we had envisioned about how it might sit when it gets parked in its permanent home. So the north side, ideally, where we get all our sun coming from the north, we think the front door might face towards the north, where someone might build a nice arrival deck. It might be also where they sort of hang out. You might have a little awning that comes out a bit further over this deck. The roof also slopes down to this side, so you might have solar panels, which are going to be facing towards the north. And then water collection is also going to be happening on this side. So if you have a water tank on this side, you might develop a garden where you arrive, and it's kind of where you hang out. So a good example of this is a tiny house that was purchased through auction, I think in 2019, which now lives at the Mile River Camp, which is in Hawk's Nest, a couple of hours north of Sydney. And as you can see in these photos, the tiny house has been added to with quite a generous deck, which has a pergola over the top of it and some solar panels as well. Now this tiny house is coming up for sale, and so it's going to be auctioned off through the Bauer's annual auction, which we run in partnership with Rafa, Kelleher and Thomas. And to find out more information, head to the Bauer's website, which is bauer.org.au.